Have you ever stood in a place so silent that your thoughts echoed louder than your voice? Cambodia, a name I had read in books, a place buried under layers of war, temples, and a resilience I didn't yet understand. But what no book told me, what no blog prepared me for, was this: that here, in this country of light and shadows, something strange happens. The land doesn't shout its story. It waits, patiently, until you're quiet enough to listen. When I first arrived, I was just another traveler with a camera and a checklist. Angkor Wat, tuk-tuks, street food, another notch in my passport. But then, I met a boy selling incense outside a temple. Barefoot, grinning, no more than 10. He looked up at me and said, in broken English, "You happy today?" I smiled and nodded. He paused. Then he said, "Good." Cambodia loves people who smile. That sentence haunted me. Cambodia loves people who smile. What kind of country, after everything it's been through, temples where time no longer mattered? Stones older than any living soul still told stories, if you had the heart to hear them. Each carving felt alive, smiling apsaras with cracked lips, warriors in mid-battle, gods watching silently from shadows. And there, under the belly of Bayon's gaze, I sat for what felt like hours, just breathing, just existing. And then I heard it, not with my ears, but somewhere deeper. This land, this place, this broken, beautiful miracle of a country, it wasn't inviting me to explore. It was inviting me to surrender, to feel. Cambodia taught me something I never expected. That trauma doesn't always wear scars on the outside. Sometimes it's a temple that leans a little, or a song sung too softly, or a woman lighting incense every morning. Not for gods, but for those who never came home. On my second morning, I followed a monk from a distance. He walked like he had all the time in the world. These countries are loud, like the earth bent, loud with their tourism, loud with their stories, loud with their selling. Cambodia is a pause, a space between breaths, a moment where you're invited not to take photos, but to take inventory of your soul. And in that pause, I remembered who I was before the rush, before the likes, before the algorithms, before I became a content machine instead of a human being. A land that gives more than it takes. What's wild is, I thought I was here to document Cambodia. But really, Cambodia documented me. Every emotion, every whisper, every breath I didn't know I needed to take. And that's the paradox. A country once silenced taught me how to speak to myself again. Before I left, I went back to that same spot at Angkor Wat, the same steps where I saw the monk, same breeze, same smell of earth and incense. And this time, I didn't film anything. I just sat. I just said thank you, not out loud. Let me take you through this journey. But the stones heard me. Not as a tourist guide, but as a witness to the wonder, the silence, and the stories that still live in every stone, every smile, and every shadow. This is Cambodia, and this is how it begins. It starts quietly, not with a grand temple or famous monument, but with a smell. Burnt lemongrass, warm rice, smoke from morning fires curling up into the sky like prayers. The air feels different here. Not cleaner or fresher, just honest. Like it has stories in it. Like it's been waiting. My first morning, I didn't chase anything. No map, no destination. I just stepped outside and started walking. And what I noticed first wasn't what I saw, but what I felt. A woman sweeping the front of her home, barefoot, humming. A small child offering a mango to a passing monk. A dog dozing lazily in a puddle of shadow. The rhythm of life, completely at ease. You realize quickly that Cambodia moves at its own pace. It flows like water. And the moment you stop trying to control it, you become part of the current. I sat down at a tiny roadside stall that morning. Plastic chairs, tin roof, the scent of ginger in the air. The owner didn't speak English, and I didn't speak Khmer, But when our eyes met, she smiled like we'd known each other forever. She handed me a bowl, something steaming, fragrant, unfamiliar. I didn't ask what it was. I just ate. And somehow that was enough. We didn't speak. We just shared that moment. One spoonful at a time, one smile at a time. And that's how it begins. Not with words, but with gestures, with glances, with silence. I kept walking, past fields that shimmered with water like mirrors reflecting the sky, past rusted bicycles leaning against trees, past houses on stilts, chickens darting underneath, grandmothers waving slowly from porches. Every scene felt like poetry, unpolished, untouched. Illness, I found something I didn't even know I was looking for. Presence. The truth is, I hadn't been present in a long time. I was always somewhere else. On a screen, in a plan, chasing the next. But here there's no next. There's just now. Now is a man riding a bicycle too small for him, smiling like the world is new. Now is a barefoot child chasing a paper kite through the wind. Now is the shadow of a palm tree moving inch by inch across an ancient path. It was strange. I came with a list of places to visit, but I tore it up by lunchtime. Because the magic of Cambodia isn't in its destinations, it's in its details. Later that day, I passed a group of children playing near a broken wall. They didn't ask for money or photos, just a smile. A hello, maybe a game. So I stopped. And for 20 minutes, I wasn't a traveler. I was one of them. Laughing, running, losing, winning, feeling alive. That's when it hit me. It's not about seeing
Maybe
more.
we overcomplicate
Maybe it's
travel.
about feeling deeper. Every sound here felt intentional. Every glance held weight. Even the silence wasn't empty. It was full of memory, full of meaning. As the sun dipped lower, the golden hour painted everything with a sacred light. The kind of glow that makes dust look like magic. The kind of light that makes you forget where you came from. A man was burning incense near a tree. No temple, no shrine. Just a tree. I watched him from a distance, not wanting to intrude. He lit 3 sticks, pressed his palms together, and whispered something. Then he turned and walked away. That was it. I asked someone later what that meant. They said, maybe he was thanking the tree for shade. Or maybe he was remembering someone he lost. I never found out. But I didn't need to. Because in Cambodia, you learn something important. Not all stories are yours to understand.
That night, lying
Some
under a
are
fan
just
that
yours
squeaked
to
with
witness. With every turn, I listened to the world outside. Crickets, dogs, distant music. No notifications, no deadlines. Just peace. I came here looking for adventure, but instead I found stillness. The kind of stillness that doesn't feel empty, but healing. The kind that slows your heart. The kind that makes you feel human again. And that was just the first day. No famous landmarks, no big moments. Just ordinary lives, living beautifully. Just quiet things. Saying loud truths. And somehow I already knew I wasn't just passing through Cambodia. Cambodia was passing through me. It's easy to imagine spirituality as something grand. Temples carved into mountains. Chanting echoing through ancient halls. Glowing candles in the thousands. But in Cambodia, the sacred doesn't scream. It whispers. You don't need to search for it here. Because it's everywhere.
In the way they touch their hands
In the way
together
people
when
begin
they
their
greet you.
mornings. In the quiet respect shown to the ground, the sky, and each other. It's not religion tied to rules. It's presence. It's reverence. It's gratitude for things we forget to notice. The first time I saw the monks, the sun hadn't fully risen. The air was still cool, the streets mostly empty. But there they were, moving silently in a single line, dressed in saffron, barefoot, their bowls hanging gently from one shoulder. They didn't ask. They simply received, not out of need, but as part of a rhythm older than memory. One by one, villagers stepped out of their homes with offerings, rice, fruit, sometimes just water, heads bowed, eyes lowered, No selfies, no spectacle, just a shared understanding. Today begins with giving. What struck me most wasn't the ritual itself. It was the look in their eyes. Gentle, steady, unshaken. Like they'd made peace with the world a long time ago.
Ceremonies,
We're used
in
to measuring
performances,
value in noise, in volume. But here, spirituality is subtle. A string tied around the wrist, a flower placed at the foot of a statue, a soft chant under one's breath while cleaning the doorstep. I asked someone, "Why do you give to the monks?" The answer wasn't about karma or religion. They just said, "Because we are lucky to have something to give." That sentence stayed with me. In a world obsessed with getting, here was a place built around giving. As I wandered, I found shrines tucked into trees, under bridges, in the corners of rice fields. Spirit houses, tiny, colorful, perched high like birdhouses, decorated with garlands, incense, and even cans of soda. I asked, "Who lives there?" And a child replied, "The ones who came before." That's the thing about Cambodia. The past isn't buried. It walks beside you. It eats with you. It's honored, not hidden. People don't need to understand everything to respect it. You're allowed to feel before you understand. One evening, I entered a small temple. No guidebook had recommended it. No crowd was waiting outside. Just an old monk sitting alone, polishing a brass bowl, humming a song older than the walls themselves. He didn't look up when I entered. He didn't need to. I sat beside him, silently. And for a long time, we just listened to the wind. Eventually, he spoke. Not to me, not even to the room, just to the moment. Everything is born, everything dies, but not everything is remembered. Then he smiled and kept polishing. That night, I couldn't sleep. Not because of the noise, but because of the stillness inside me. How often do we really sit in silence without trying to fill it? Cambodia doesn't just allow for silence, it celebrates it. It tells you, you don't need to do anything to be worthy. You don't need to fix everything to find peace. You just need to listen. And for the first time in years, still light incense before opening their stalls. At intersections, you'll see a family pause to offer a prayer before a journey. Even children, playful, wild, free, stop to bow before a statue, just for a second, as if checking in with the sky. It's not obligation. It's not fear. It's habitual gratitude. A way of remembering that life is a gift, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. You start to notice the small rituals in your own day. The way you fold your clothes. The way you breathe before speaking. The way you look at the sunrise not for a photo, but for what it actually feels like. Cambodia teaches you that the sacred is not hidden in temples or prayers. It's hidden in attention, in your ability to see the world gently, in how you treat a leaf, a stranger, a moment. I didn't come here looking for God, but I found something divine in the way people live. In how they bow, not out of fear, but out of love. In how they remember, not with words, how they pray, but with, not for more, but to say, thank you, I'm still here. That's what sacred means, I think. Not something high above, but something deeply within. Some places speak in stories. Cambodia speaks in silences. Not the kind of silence that's empty, but the kind that feels full. Like a pause in a conversation that says more than words ever could. You walk through this land and feel it. A kind of ache in the air. Like the wind itself remembers. And it does. Because Cambodia is a country built on memory. Not just the memory of temples or kings or ancient dynasties, but the memory of pain, of survival, of grace that bloomed through grief. You don't need to visit a museum to feel it. It's in the way elders look at you, in the way their stories drift out slowly, gently, not to impress, but to heal. One afternoon, I sat with an old man under a jackfruit tree. We shared boiled peanuts in silence, and out of this village was the sound of disappearing. I didn't ask what he meant. He didn't explain. He just closed his eyes and smiled like someone who has walked through fire and come out the other side with love still in his pocket. Cambodia remembers. It remembers the time when the skies went quiet, when friends turned to strangers, when music stopped, when books were burned, and names were erased like chalk in the rain. It remembers the fields, where seeds of fear were sown and watered with tears. But it also remembers the healing, because Cambodia is not just a story of tragedy. It is a story of survival. In places where graves outnumber the living, joy still grows, laughter still echoes, and children run barefoot across the same earth that once shook with sorrow. That's what struck me most. This is not a land broken by history. It is a land transformed by it. You see people rebuilding, not just homes once stood, but identities. Songs return to villages once silenced. A grandmother teaches her granddaughter the old stories in a language that was almost lost. Memory is not a chain here. It's a bridge, a way to walk forward without forgetting who you are. I met a young teacher in a rural school. He told me, "My parents couldn't go to school. So now I teach." Just that. Simple. Brave. In that one sentence, there was generations of pain and generations of hope. There's a kind of gentleness in Cambodia that you don't find in loud places. People speak softly, not because they're weak, but because they've seen what loudness can destroy. A quiet culture doesn't mean a passive one. It means a culture that listens. And maybe that's what this world needs now more than anything. Not louder voices, but deeper listening. I visited a school where the walls were made from recycled plastic bottles. The kids had dirt on their faces.
It's so the
and stars
sadness
in
can
their
smell
eyes.
something nice. I didn't have words, I still don't. In the cities, cranes are lifting new dreams into the sky. But in the villages, memory grows slower, like rice. It needs water, it needs patience, it needs care. And here's the truth. You cannot understand Cambodia without understanding its sorrow. But you also can't love it without seeing its joy. They exist together, in the same song, in the same silence. The temples will awe you, the sunsets will stun you, but it's the people, the ones carrying yesterday on their backs while planting tomorrow in the soil. That's who you'll never forget. I left a small village with a scarf given to me by a local woman. She tied it around my neck and said, "To remember us, to take care of you." I didn't even know her name, but she gave me a part of her history and trusted me to carry it. Maybe that's what travel is really about, not collecting places, but collecting reminders of how strong people can be, of how soft hearts can stay, even after breaking. Cambodia is not just a place to visit. It is a place that visits you, in your dreams, in your quiet moments, in your soul. Because when a land carries so much pain with so much grace, it teaches you something no guidebook ever could, that to remember is not to be stuck in the past, but to honor it with every step forward. If you want to understand Cambodia, eat with the people, not in a restaurant with a printed menu and a fork, but in a home where rice is steaming in a pot that has been cooking over the same fire for generations. In Cambodia, food is more than flavor. It is a memory, a medicine, a language spoken by the hands. I remember the first time someone offered me nam ban chok. I had no idea what it was. Just a bowl of thin rice noodles, covered in a green curry, with shredded banana flour, beans, mint leaves, and shaved cucumber. I took one bite, and something changed. The taste was like sunlight after rain, fresh, quiet, and oddly emotional. Not spicy like other Southeast Asian foods, but thoughtful, delicate, layered, honest. I looked at the woman who made it, her face creased with kindness, her hands stained from turmeric, and said, "It's perfect." She smiled and replied, "It's just what my mother made." And I realized I wasn't just eating food. I was tasting a memory passed down through love. In the markets, everything is alive. The colors, the sounds, the smells, lemongrass and garlic, dried fish and chili paste. Women shouting prices, kids chasing chickens. Someone's grilling frog legs on a tiny charcoal fire beside mounds of jackfruit. It's chaos, but also choreography. Everyone knows their role. Everyone is connected by what they grow, what they cook, and what they share. I asked a vendor if I could take a picture. She laughed, handed me a mango, and said, "Eat first, pictures come later." That's the thing about Cambodia. Eating is not a transaction. You join, you wait, you listen. Sometimes a meal begins with silence, not because there's nothing to say, but because the food says enough. One night in a floating village, I was invited to dinner by a fisherman's family. They had caught a few river prawns and catfish. The kitchen was a bamboo platform above water. Firewood crackled under a pot balanced on bricks. There was no fridge, no fancy spice rack, just hands, knowing exactly what to do. I watched his wife pound galangal, chilies, and garlic in a mortar that had been passed down 3 generations. "This is our family recipe," she said, "but everyone makes it differently." That line stuck with me, because food here isn't fixed, it flows, it evolves. It carries both tradition and improvisation like music played from memory. Later that night, we sat on the floor cross-legged. Fish was grilled and flaky. The soup was sharp with tamarind and warm with basil. Sticky rice came in woven baskets. No plates, no knives, just fingers and laughter. The fisherman's mother, who had barely spoken all evening, suddenly said, "When we eat together, we are never poor." And then, she reached over and placed the best piece of fish on my banana leaf. That was her way of saying welcome. In that moment, I felt more seen than any conversation ever could make me. Cambodian cuisine doesn't shout, it whispers flavors. It's about balance, not overpowering heat or sweetness, but harmony. Every bite is thoughtful. Every dish is a soft echo of someone's childhood, someone's story. Dishes like samlar korko, a vegetable stew once cooked for kings. Or a muk tray, fish wrapped in banana leaf, steamed gently with coconut and lemongrass. These foods are not fast, they take time. Time to gather, time to stir, time to share. And then there's rice, the heartbeat of every meal. In Cambodia, rice is not just a side dish, it's a symbol of survival. Families pray before planting it, they bless the harvest, they store it like treasure. They talk to it like it's alive. I once heard a grandmother say, "You must respect your rice. It remembers your hunger." Maybe that's why every grain is treated like gold here. Food in Cambodia is also about forgiveness. After war, famine, and loss, people still cook with joy, still invite strangers to their table, still flavor their future with hope. That's the power of food. It brings people together when words cannot. It heals what politics, borders, and time try to break. You leave the table not just full, but connected. To land, to history, to heart. The last night before I left the village, the family cooked one more meal for me. No big ceremony. Just a pot of chicken soup, herbs picked from the edge of the river, and some fermented fish paste. As we ate, the fisherman said, "Tell people not just what you saw, but what you tasted." And I promised I would. In Cambodia, food is not a luxury. It is an offering, a ritual, a gift. Food is not a luxury. And to eat it is an offering, a ritual, a gift. And to eat with someone here, truly sit and share their meal, is to be trusted with more than just flavor. It is to be trusted with their story, a story of fire and water, of hunger and abundance, of love, seasoned, slow, and eternal. There are countries you visit, and then there are countries you feel. Cambodia is not a place you rush through. It's a place you flow with, like the rivers that shape it. You begin to understand. This land doesn't move at the speed of engines. It moves at the rhythm of nature, of water, of wind, of waiting. In Cambodia, the river isn't just a river, it is a heartbeat. The Mekong flows not just through the land, but through the stories, the prayers, the dreams of the people. You see it in how fishermen rise before light, in how children dive into muddy waters like it's their playground, in how elders sit on the banks, chewing betel, watching the flow as if it's a movie they've seen 100 times and still love. The Tonle Sap, Southeast Asia's largest freshwater lake, breathes with the seasons. It swells, it shrinks, like a living being. And the people who live on and around it, they adapt. Floating homes drift slightly every month. Schools move, markets float. Life doesn't resist the water here. It joins it. One morning, I sat in a small wooden boat, rowing through the mist. A boy, no older than 10, was my guide. He didn't speak English, but he pointed to a bird, then to the sky, then to the lotus below. That was his language, and it was enough. We floated past pink lilies opening to the sun, past trees half submerged, past silence so deep it almost felt sacred. And then he smiled and started singing softly. I didn't understand the words, but the melody held something ancient. That's what Cambodia teaches you. Even silence here has a soul. Rain in Cambodia doesn't just fall. It cleanses, it cools the temples, it kisses the rice, it softens the grief buried in the soil. You can smell it before it arrives, sweet, earthy, electric. I once got caught in a downpour while cycling through a village. My camera was soaked, my clothes stuck to my skin. But instead of running, the villagers laughed. One woman pulled me under her awning, handed me tea, and said, "Let it rain. It's a blessing." We sat there for 40 minutes just listening. No talking, just listening, to the sound of healing. In the countryside, nature is not scenery. It is family. The buffalo is not an animal, it's a worker, a friend, a part of the household. The banana tree is not just fruit. It's leaf, medicine, plate, and prayer offering. Even the dust on the road has a purpose. It rises when weddings happen. It coats the feet of children coming home from school. It clings to monks walking barefoot at sunrise. This land holds everything, gently, patiently. And in between it all, rice fields stretch endlessly. Lush, green, golden, depending on the season. Standing in a Cambodian rice field at sunset.
Rice fields stretch endlessly, lush, green, golden, depending on the season. Standing in a Cambodian rice field at sunset is like being inside a painting you never want to leave. The sky turns copper, and Cambodia. Nature is not a backdrop. It is the stage, the script, the storyteller. And if you listen closely, in the wind, and the water, and the rain, you'll hear it whisper, "You are not here to conquer, you are here to remember." And Cambodia, the loudest sound, is often silence, but not an empty silence. It's a sacred stillness thick with incense, memory, and something almost invisible, something divine. You don't come here just to take photos of temples, you come here to slow down. To breathe differently. To listen, remember waking up before the sun. The sky was still purple. I heard temple bells in the distance, soft, slow, ancient. I followed the sound, barefoot on cool ground, through a village just waking up. On the narrow road, a line of monks passed by, silent, heads bowed, saffron robes glowing like fire in the gray light. Locals waited outside their homes, hands together, offering rice and fruit, some with candles, some with only a smile. There were no tourists. No phones, only reverence. And I realized, this isn't religion for show, this is everyday devotion. In Cambodia, temples aren't just places to visit, they are living spaces. Old women sweep the steps each morning as if cleaning a shrine inside themselves. Children run barefoot across courtyards, laughing around statues of Buddha. Cats sleep under golden altars, and somewhere, always, someone is praying. You don't have to understand Khmer to feel the power here. Faith doesn't need words. It speaks in stillness. One monk, not more than 14, looked up at me with calm eyes and said in halting English, "Still heart. Strong heart." Then he offered me a red thread and tied it gently around my wrist. "Safe journey," he whispered, and walked away. That single moment felt more powerful than 100 sermons. Not performance. In a forest monastery, far from towns and tuk-tuks, I spent an afternoon with no camera, no signal, no distractions, just me, and the chanting of monks in the distance. I sat under a Bodhi tree, its leaves whispering stories older than empires. Across from me was a weathered Buddha, his stone face cracked with age and peace, and as the sun moved behind the trees, I felt something shift. My breathing slowed. My thoughts quieted. I didn't feel like a tourist anymore. I felt present. Cambodia teaches you that peace is not a destination, it's a practice. In Cambodia, sacred isn't something you find on a map, it's something you feel, in your bones, in your breath, and if you're lucky, you don't just capture it with your camera, you carry it with your soul. If there's one thing you'll never forget about Cambodia, it's the smile, not the tourist smile, not the posed for camera kind, but the real one, the kind that comes from somewhere deeper, somewhere that's been tested and still chooses joy. I've seen it everywhere, in the wrinkled face of a grandmother selling herbs in the sun, in the muddy feet of laughing children chasing old tires down village roads, in a mechanic's grease-stained hands as he fixed my tuk-tuk with a grin and a joke I couldn't even understand. Cambodians have a way of making you feel like you belong. Even when you clearly don't, they'll invite you to sit, to eat, to rest, not because they have a lot, but because they have enough to share. In a fishing village by the lake, a boy no older than 10 offered me a piece of dried fish. It wasn't much, but it was everything. His family waved from their wooden stilt house, barefoot and bright-eyed. They didn't need to know who I was. They just wanted to say hello. This is what makes Cambodia unforgettable, not just its landscapes or temples, but its people, people who've seen hard times and chose to greet the world with kindness. Unforgettable, not just its landscapes or temples, but its people, people who've seen hard times and chose to greet the world with kindness anyway. Their strength doesn't shout. It smiles. You come to Cambodia looking for beauty, and you find it, not just in what you see, but in how you're seen. The smiles here aren't for show, they're for sharing, and when you leave, you'll find yourself smiling too. There's a strange feeling that creeps in when you're about to leave a place that changed you. Not sadness exactly. Not regret, something softer, like the final glow of a candle before the flame disappears. That's what Cambodia feels like in the end. A soft goodbye, a whisper of something beautiful that never quite leaves you. I came here with expectations, temples, tuk-tuks, markets, maybe a few good photos, but I'm leaving with something I didn't expect, a lighter heart and a quieter mind. Cambodia doesn't impress you with extravagance, it humbles you with simplicity. It doesn't shout its beauty, it lets you stumble upon it, like a child's drawing on a wall, a monk sweeping leaves in silence, or a song playing on an old radio at dusk. This is a place where life is not filtered or staged, it's raw, honest, and in that honesty, there's magic. In the villages, strangers smiled without asking who I was. In the cities, chaos danced with calm in the same breath. In the jungles, nature whispered in the language of birds and wind. Cambodia taught me how to be still in a loud world, to listen not just with my ears, but with my eyes. And sometimes, with my heart, I saw people who had lost everything, but still gave, children who had little, but laughed like they owned the sky, temples that had crumbled, and yet still stood tall. This is not just a land of ruins, it's a land of renewal, and maybe that's the real gift of Cambodia. It doesn't ask you to remember every place or every name, it just wants you to remember how you felt, free, connected, alive. I look down one last time. The land fades into clouds, but something stays with me, a smile, a chant, a stillness. And I know, I didn't just visit Cambodia, a part of me stayed behind, and a part of Cambodia came home with me.